everybody. Welcome to Guided Listening this week. So we're going to listen to the great drummer Paul Motian, the guitarist Bill Frisell, and Joe Lovano on tenor saxophone. This is Paul Motian's trio, and the song we're going to listen to is Evidence by Thelonious Monk. Now, I named three people: drums, guitar, saxophone. You think perhaps I've forgotten the bass player. I have not forgotten the bass player. This trio of Paul Motian's made quite a few albums and existed for a good long time. And very fascinating. They chose that instrumentation. And, if you pick up 10 jazz albums or 100 jazz albums, they're all going to have bass on it or somebody doing the role of bass. This trio, no bass, and nobody, in a sense, really covering the role of bass. It's a fascinating sound, and of course, it's a sparse sound. It doesn't have all the bottom end we're used to, but it's an interesting choice. So speaking of interesting choices, I chose this one today because I made the interesting choice of doing the exact same instrumentation on a gig tomorrow. I'm going to be using Tony Martucci on drums, a legend here on the East Coast. John Lee on guitar. So these guys and myself on tenor sax. I am inspired by this sort of playing. And playing without bass, it really changes everything. For one thing, it gives the other two instruments, guitar and drums, a lot more leeway. Like there's only three of us talking to each other, so a three-way conversation can be more intimate than adding a fourth person, right? So there's that. But when the bass is there doing the role of the bass, playing a repetitive grooving bass line, if it's groove music, or walking a bass line, that materially changes how the drummer plays. The drummer now is connecting with that person, and then I get to solo, let's say, over top. The drum, or rather the guitar, whoever's comping, is now part of the rhythm section. There's a rhythm section, and there's a soloist. So there's this me and them kind of thing. And how they, the three of them, bass, drums, guitar in this instance, relate to each other is sort of set. And there's all this historical precedent and, all of that. And so it's very interesting. By taking away the bass, the foundation is gone. So we have to be pretty in the moment to figure out, how do we relate to each other? Because the drums is no longer, it's really cool. So it's fun to do. If you have not tried this, any sort of atypical instrumentation changes things. The trick is to not play in a way where you're apologizing for the fact that there's no bass, where the guitar player or the keyboard player is walking a bass line. Never do that. I'm going to say never. Why would you do that? The whole point is to be doing something other. So it's very interesting. It's challenging. And so I'm excited to do it with these two guys, Tony and John, who I have a long musical relationships with each. We played, the three of us, together in different settings and everything. So this is going to be fun. So selfishly, it's like I'm thinking, yeah, let me listen to some of this music and be inspired by it. And then I thought this would be wonderful to share with you. So Paul Motian did this album called Monk in Motion. All Thelonious Monk tunes. It was originally on the JMT, I think a German record label. So it's very cool. So let me just say two things and then we'll jump into it. One is Bill Frisell's guitar playing. If you've never heard Bill Frisell, or if you don't know if you've heard Bill Frisell, whatever you're expecting, it's not that. So one of the things that he does is plays with a volume pedal, literally a pedal that turns up and down the volume. A lot of guitarists play with a volume pedal to help them turn up during the solo and all that kind of stuff. So Bill Frisell, I've seen him play a number of times, and just from listening, my understanding of what he's doing is he's really using the volume pedal a lot for the attacks of the notes. So it gives the attack, and so we call it the envelope of the sound. Attack, decay, sustain, release. There's these aspects that old school synthesizers would have that make something sound the way they sound. Piano is a percussive instrument. When you play a note on piano, it never gets louder. It's a sharp, firm attack on a graph, immediate, and then there's this decay. A piano can't do a crescendo, for instance, like the saxophone, which makes it a very subpar instrument. I don't even think the piano is going to catch on, historically. Fairly lame. A guitar, you pluck the string, it's never going to get louder. the string decays. Another weak instrument. Unlike the saxophone, I play a note, I can play a crescendo. The human voice, you can sing a note, you can play a crescendo. We can add vibrato, all these things that some of the more limited instruments. I said it with a straight face for a while. You got to give me props for that. But these instruments that are very percussive, it's a great sound. And now horn players, we spend our lives trying to be able to play very percussive and immediate and in tune and with a full sound right away. It's hard to do, right? So what does Bill Frisell do? He's trying to play in a more vocal kind of way, I would say. I'm sure we could listen to interviews, but he's clearly toying with the attack, with that firm percussiveness of the guitar. And so it gives it this very different sound. And he processes the timbre of the sound some too as well. One thing I'll say, I listened to the whole album today, and Joe Lovano's sound, they did something to his sound. So if there's some recording experts out there, what do you think? It's a phase thing. So whether they literally put a super subtle phase shifter, I don't think it's a flanger, like a delay between channels, or I was wondering maybe if they recorded him with a couple mics and they were at a phase, but I don't think it would give it that sound. But it's a slight shimmer to his sound. It's all the way through the album. Dewey Redman plays on a tune, and his sound has it. It's just a different sound. I don't think it's a mic. It's not how those guys usually sound, but it's not a big effect. So it's kind of interesting. So I'm just kind of curious about that. So let's do this. Let's jump in. Let's listen to the Thelonious Monk song, Evidence. It's a really quirky song that's kind of as much a rhythm as it is a tune. So if you know the song, it'll be helpful to follow through. Here we go. Bill Frisell, Joe Lovano, Paul Motian. This is called Evidence. So just drums and guitar. And this is the melody of the tune. Second A. It's a 32 measure bar tune. Bridge. So we can hear Frisell playing counterpoint with himself, playing something, playing the line, he's harmonizing the melody. So there's just a ton going on already with him. And now Joe Lovano playing the melody a second time. So it's interesting without the foundation of the bass, isn't it? And you hear what I mean about Lovano's sound? It's processed, but still sounds like an acoustic horn. It's kind of fascinating. So here comes the end of the melody, and so as I listen to each part, if we took the guitar and the saxophone away, the drum part would be really fascinating on its own. He's not, laying down time, right? And the sort of pointillistic bits here and there with the guitar, again, I think that would be fascinating. Just the comping part, the tonality, how he's using the volume pedal again. And all sorts of hallmarks of Joe Lovano's playing, these great flurries of notes, but they're not really locked in sixteenths necessarily. How he growls up high with his notes. A real nice bounce to his playing. And we can really hear the chords in his playing. He's not playing free, he's playing these changes. And that's it, sax solo. Now, if you know the melody of this tune, be singing along, because Bill Frisell's solo, everything he's playing, all these little bits and pieces and moves and how he's toying with us are super locked into the melody. He's frankly playing an embellished version of the melody here, I'd say. get a Hawaiian slide guitar vibe a little bit? Yeah, there's so many different styles inside what Bill Frisell is doing. There's like old school blues, like Chicago blues. There's Hawaiian sound. There's all the great jazz stuff. There's Thelonious Monk's comping and, you know, the great crunchy clusters that he uses. How he does catch some bass note stuff, but not in a way that's making up for the bass that's not there. So do you hear what I'm talking about? Those notes that kind of fade in. So he'll bend as he's fading in with the volume pedal. So it's a really dynamic sound. Dynamic in the sense of changing all the time. Melody out. And so Paul Motian is solo. So his solo is over the head out. Very cool. All right, so yeah, I really want to know about Joe Lovano's sound and if that was something they did after the fact, and did Lovano like it or not, or, you know, it's atypical and sort of, you know, knowing his playing. If this were Joshua Redman in the Elastic Band or, you know, Donnie McCaslin, you know, guys that are sort of known to use effects and playing in an electronic setting, makes sense, right? I made an album like that myself. This is, of course, more acoustic, but it's not acoustic because of Frisell. Anyway, I'm just sort of fascinated by that interesting sound that sounds processed, which we wouldn't expect on most jazz albums. But this is definitely not most jazz albums, is it? So I hope that was interesting to listen to. And as I said, I don't know how many albums they did, 5, 6, it could be 10. I mean, it's a lot, and they toured a lot. There's a lot of great live footage of this band playing trio like this. They played a lot of Thelonious Monk, but they had lots of originals that all three of them brought into the group. So anyway, that concept of changing up the instrumentation and toying with the instrumentation and how that changes the rules of engagement. And we all love playing with bass and drums and what it's like with just a really swing and rhythm section. That's what jazz is all about. But jazz is also all about change and sort of trying new things and putting ourselves in different situations and seeing what comes out. So I'm really excited to do some playing in this setting myself. I've got all this vocabulary and things I've been working on and ideas and licks and, you know, this and that. And I'm going to try to not think about too much of that as I'm playing. Those things all work in the in the construct of like kind of regular playing with a quartet kind of stuff. Now, there will absolutely be moments like that, but personally, I'm going to challenge myself to have fewer plans and to be more open to what's happening in the moment. And I know Tony Martucci on drums, John Lee on guitar are very much those guys to do this work with. So I'm excited about that. I really had a blast doing this kind of playing. And just, you know, kind of challenging you to maybe check out a little bit more of it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've never heard Bill Frisell before, like, that's a universe unto itself right there. So, last thing is I want to invite you to join me for the Jazzwire Winter Summit, which is coming up at the end of January 2024. We do it in January every year. And thousands of you watch these videos every week. We've got 8 spots left, so you can do the math. Those of you who have been out there kind of lurking and watching the videos, I love that. I'm so happy you enjoy this stuff and you get something from it and you can take it and just enjoy it or take it into your playing. That is fantastic. I don't ask anything more. But if you want to actually do this together, I would love that. I would love to get to know you and your playing. So sign up for the Winter Summit or just join us inside Jazzwire and we'll take it from there. So Hope you enjoyed Evidence, and I will see you back here next week. Take care.